So a person who does not have faith, you have to understand, he will always live in fear. He will always live in fear. This is the meaning of معيشة ضنكا. من أعرض عن ذكري فإنه معيشة ضنكا. That's why live in fear. They're worried about a lot of things. So to prepare, they're spending billions of dollars and this and that. But at the end, they will only be able to reach what Allah Subhanahu wa Taala has allowed them to reach. Right? Yes, brother. Son.
The Muslims that are involved in this for the sake of exploration or discovery for science, are they in wrongdoing for being involved, even though they have a different agenda?
No, they're not, because these people, they are not trying to commit an act of disbelief. They are saying, let's give you an example. For example, they want to say, we want to go and try to make Antarctica be inhabitable. Antarctica, South Pole. It's very cold as that. But, we're going to try to make it good for the living of human beings. This is not a disbelief, right? If they want to go and try to do, something on Mars, again, it's not a disbelief. Allah made Earth for the creation to live in, but if human beings are able to create something like cars or airplanes or space stations where they can live on Mars, this has nothing to do with faith or not faith. I mean, even that, that knowledge, they only reached it with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's leave. Because they cannot reach a knowledge if Allah does not allow. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Ayat al-Kursi, right? وَلَا يُحِيطُونَ بِشَيْءٍ مِنْ شَيْءٍ وَلَا يُحِيطُونَ بِشَيْءٍ مِنْ عِلْمِهِ إِلَّا بِمَا شَاءَ. So this knowledge that the non-Muslims have reached, this is also Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows them that. This is part of His wisdom. So no, there's no harm in actually, but it's science, it's things, just like research for curing cancer and stuff. No, there's no harm in doing that. Because someone cannot say, well, Allah gives a person cancer, it's His qadar, you're not allowed to interfere. No, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, undertake the necessary steps. As the Prophet ﷺ said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not bring down any disease except that He has brought down a cure. Some people will know the cure, some people will not know it. So this goes into research into no. Alhamdulillah, we don't have this. This is more like in the Christian religion. This is why they revolted against it. Like, they said that, the earth is flat, and, if you say that there is gravity, then you're a disbeliever, this, that. But for us, we believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whether the earth is round or flat, we worship Allah regardless of how the earth is. You understand? So many people, they compare this thing, like the physical and stuff of how the earth is with faith. No, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, worship me, irrespective whether the earth is flat or not flat. Go ahead, brother. Okay? Jazakallah.
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Is the people try to make the what they call human intelligence, what do they call
artificial intelligence? Yeah.
A lot of Muslim people, they accept it. Even Muslim countries today, they afford to do it artificial intelligence as a worthy, whatever is to make conclusion. If the people, because does look like they copy like human being, right?
Yeah.
So it's the people, Muslim people, they accepted that. It's a shirk.
No, but it's not shirk, because let me tell you, airplane. What did they copy the airplane from? They copy it from a bird, from Allah's creation, right? So artificial intelligence is just a computer program that learns by itself. Instead of you programming it every time, you just give it an initial program, and then as it interacts with people, it learns some things. But it's not going to reach human beings. It's not reaching human. It's not shirk. It's not shirk. Shirk meaning you worship. Shirk meaning you worship something with Allah. You worship something.
They're trying to create like other human beings.
Yes, and the more they try, and the more they fail, the more they will recognize the greatness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Yeah.
Okay?
But that concept, if you try to do something to compare it to a creation of Allah, it's not shirk.
No, it's not. You know what shirk is, right? Shirk means partnership.
Yeah.
That means to worship Allah and worship something with it. This is what shirk is. Okay? If they are trying to create a creation like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala,
Yeah, that's what I mean.
yeah, if they're trying to create a creation like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that's because they know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the perfect creation. And they're trying to create something that can do some of the functions of this creation. But there's a big difference between us and them. This creation and us. That's the soul. This creation is physical. We have a physical body and we have a soul. And this is why Shaitan was wrong when he compared only the physical creation of Adam to his physical creation. He did not figure out the soul. So, for example, a person does not have legs, right? So, are we allowed to give him artificial legs so that he can walk? Or are we going to say, no, his legs are cut off, let him die like that? Of course, he's able to do that so that he can live his life. There's nothing in Islam that tells you that you cannot do this innovation. What you cannot do, the shirk comes in making statues, taking pictures. These are hadith that say they shouldn't do that. Why? Because this may lead you to worship these things. But to create something like Allah Ta'ala created, it's everything that we're dealing with now. This light, what is it? This light is an emulation of the sun, right? This phone, it's like a human being basically talking to you, right? But is it haram? No, it's not haram. A computer. Instead, I give you examples. Like everything we deal with today is imitation of creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Airplanes, imitation of birds. Okay, Allah knows best.
I just follow up to that question. If I hang the picture of my father who deceased many years ago, the religion is not allowing me to do that.
Yeah,
right?
it's haram, correct. Yeah.
And these robots that they talk about is the shape of a human being. Let's say somebody create that and looks like a human being. And if it's not allowed as a Muslim to make it through a picture, your picture, and put my house or even hang it the wall, why should it's okay to make
A robot.
like human, walking like human,
Good
talking
question.
like human?
Good question.
Is a little, yeah.
Good question. We always go back to the reason why something is made haram. Okay, so pictures and statues are a way that people commit shirk, worship others with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like the Chinese, for example, they worship their forefathers. You know that, right? So a Chinese person, when his father dies, they burn him, they put the ashes in a small jar, and they hang his picture there, and then every once in a while he goes, he worships him. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not want us to do this. Okay? Now, if you have a robot, it can be a car. A car can be considered a robot, right? Then are you going to worship a car? You're not going to worship a car. This artificial intelligence, are you going to worship him? No, he's a servant. But a picture and a statue, this may lead to shirk. This is why it's called haram. This is why it's haram. But these other things, they are machines that do things that humans can do. Just like, the machine that our wives, for example, if I go now home to my wife and tell her this robot is haram, I'm just gonna tell her, baby, living with you is haram now, right? Because it's also a robot, right? I mean, instead of me taking a knife and cutting these things, I put it like, this is a robot, right? I mean, they call it a robot, right? So this is the difference, because these are tools that do certain things as opposed to pictures of people we love. Because shirk comes from here, from the heart. ومن الناس من يتخذ من دون الناس أندادا يحبونهم كحب الله. People that worship graves, that worship statues, that worship Isa, they do this out of love. They do this out of love. Allah says that in the Quran. Okay, but these robots, we're not going to love them. I mean, they're like having slaves, modern day slaves. So that's the thing. Allah knows best.
That meaning we're using them, we're not washing them.
It's a tool, just like I use a drill, just like I drive a car, just like
Exercise.
yeah, it's just a tool, right? But worship comes from love, and that's usually when it comes to parents and this and that, and shuyukh and things like that. That's why this is the reason why a picture is made haram, so that we don't fall in this. This is called bab sadd al-dari'a. This is closing the door to something haram that may happen. So if something is gonna, in itself may not be haram, but if it's gonna lead you to do haram things, then that thing becomes haram. Okay, and this is why the ikhtilat, mixing between men and women, is haram. It's not the mixing that's haram. It's because what it may lead to after. This is why the mixing was made haram, so that you can close the door to falling into the haram, that thing that we're talking about. Allah knows best. Yeah, go ahead, brother.
There is a possibility that also people start worshiping robots in the future. For example, now they start marrying robots, which is kind of so you can never really understand where things are going. So
People who worship mice in India, what can I tell you? I mean, human beings, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَا يُؤْمِنُ أَكْثَرَهُمْ بِاللَّهِ إِلَّا هُمْ مُشْرِكُونَ. People worship cows, worship mice, worship cockroaches. Slave. Yeah, I mean, you can't stop that. With some people, you can't stop. Okay, and this is one of the, sometimes you try to. There's a person that after salat always used to make dua, and then do this. I mean, there's a weak hadith. If a person does it, you tell him it's better not to do it. If he does it, no big deal. But so this person, there was one of the shuyukh there, and he saw him. He's like, don't do this. It's a bid'ah. So the guy says, okay, Sheikh. And then he was making dua. When he got done, he's always used to do this. So he didn't know what to do. So he did like this. He had to wipe his hands somewhere. He didn't. So some people, it doesn't matter what you do. They're going to make shirk. So, we're not going to make things halal, haram because of them. So Allah knows best. Yeah. Subhanakallah wa bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu
What
ilayk.
about the people, Muslim people who are doing the business with the crypto coins?
Bitcoin. Bitcoin, when it first came out, a lot of scholars were asked about it, and they said, look, this is a new thing. We cannot say it's halal haram, right? But the way, my son actually was the first one to ask me this question. Okay, I told him one thing. I said, this looks more like gambling to me, and this looks like an inflated project. And this is what happened. That's why people lost billions of dollars. Okay, because usually the money that we use, okay, except for the US dollar, on the order of Jimmy Carter, every single money that is made in a country, Saudi riyal, dirham, dinar, has to have an equivalent of gold with that country. You cannot just come and print money. Did you know that? So that money that we use in has an equivalent of gold that the country has to have. So if the gold has, for example, 5 kilos of gold, then it can only print as an equivalent of that in money, except the US dollar. That was this equivalence with gold was taken away, and then they tied it with the petrodollar. So that's why with Saudi Arabia they made a deal. That's why the Saudi riyal never changes from the US dollar, and they tried to do the same thing with Saddam Hussein, but he didn't want to. That's why they took him out. This is the reason for taking out Saddam Hussein. This actually came out after the fact, because the Americans have what they call economic hitmen. Economic hitmen. That means a country that goes against the US, these economists, they get together and they see how they're going to break the economy of that country. So this economist wrote a book, and he's talking about Saddam, and he's laughing, saying, when we talk to Saddam, we try to convince him to do the same thing as the Saudis are doing. He told us that the Iraqi money has to be for the Iraqi people, as if we did not know that. So we took him out. Okay. So basically, because the money has to have something physical for it to keep its value. So the US dollar is the only currency in the world that does not have an equivalent in gold. That's why they tied it to oil, and that's why it's called the petrodollar. It's called the petrodollar. Okay. So other than that, the currency has to have an equivalent of gold. Therefore, the Bitcoin is only a computer-generated program. But it's bound to stop, and that's what happened. That's why a lot of these leaders of the Bitcoin businesses were taken to jail and were prosecuted. You know that, right? Okay. Yes, go ahead, bud.
I think we ask a lot of questions.
I don't have a problem.
Yeah, so
Maghrib is still an hour away.
you just mentioned that a US dollar is not perfect. It's not like a base to the gold.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So if they have no base to the gold, why have to more value in other country their money based on their gold or their name or whatever they call it?
Yeah, oil, because they tie it with the oil. They don't tie it with the gold. They tie it with the oil.
So the oil more value than gold?
Nowadays, yeah. I mean, why is Saudi Arabia one of the richest countries? I mean, it's part of the G7, right? The 7th greatest economy, right?
Yeah.
Because of oil. Okay? Because the Prophet ﷺ said that I was given the keys to the red and red and yellow treasures. Okay, so the Prophet ﷺ, because you have to understand, 2/3 of the oil resources in the world is in Muslim land. 2/3 of oil resources, but Muslims are not benefiting from it, because as the hadith says, if you rule with other than the Sharia, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will send on you an enemy from outside you, that means among the Muslims, and will take whatever you have in your hands, because you did not rule with Allah's law. So this is punishment for us. We are poor, we are rich, but we are poor. Yes, go ahead,
You said about oil makes you rich. What about Venezuela? Yeah, the best oil and yet.
You know, Venezuela, because
These billionaires take that
it's against the Western
That's what it's all about.
it's against the Western hegemony,
The West,
and that's why, as I said, the West have economist hitmen, and not only that, but you know, Maduro is still a president after all these years, after all the American attempts, maybe because of that, because the fact that he has oil and he has the support of Russia.
he will not buy from you. That's enough. More than.
Yeah, and that's why Venezuela deals with Iran and they deal with other things. But yeah,
Libya happened to.
yeah, Libya too. Libya had the biggest oil reserve in Africa, and that's why they took out Gaddafi.
Let's go back to mixing. So some workplace, you work with women. Sometimes you work with men in the room. So is that against Islam or it's
Well, what can I tell you? For men, it's mandatory for us to earn a living, right? And if we do that, you're not going to be able to work. So this falls under the category of necessity, but necessity doesn't mean you're going to tell your coworker, let's go have coffee, let's go sit, let's go talk. They said, oh, I'm under necessity, so I'm just no. The necessity is taken as far as you can.
just doing work? That's what I'm saying.
You do your work, you know. She comes, she talks to you, you talk to her, and this, you know, no laughing, no joking, no, you know. So you talk to her in a respectful way, and that's it. And this is for men, but for women, it's not mandatory for them to work, okay, unless under some dire circumstances. So it's best for them to not fall into that category, because actually they are more of a victim than men. Women, they are more of a victim, especially when they are in an environment like on a daily basis, 8 hours especially when they have a boss. Sometimes he yells at them, sometimes he's nice to them. It's like her husband, right? So she may emotionally feel inclined towards him, and a lot of miserable things happen because of that. So that's why, if we say it's allowed for men under necessity, then of course for women we don't have that rukhsa. Of course, unless the woman has no way to eat, nobody to feed her, necessity, then, in that case, again, she takes the necessity according to the need, okay? But we cannot make a backlist and, okay, it's necessary for men and for women, okay? Because our women are supposed to be queens at home, raise our kids to be great future leaders. And this is why in the West they are trying to push the mothers to go back home. Did you know that? In the Muslim land, they try to push them to go out and work. And actually, this came I read that with my own eyes. It was a BBC report, and they had a long PDF file given to Obama, because every new president that comes, the Secret Service, FBI, CIA, NSA, etc., they give a picture of the world, a report about the whole world to the new president, so he can know what he's gonna face. And there was a section there about Muslim countries, with the map Muslim countries, color coded about the median age of men, because they are afraid of youth. So they see that between 20, there's a large percentage of these people between 25 and 35 years old. So the recommendation to the new president. And this is why when Trump came, he took out that U.S. aid. This was actually what U.S. aid was doing to these countries. So they recommended to him that we need to introduce programs that will help and encourage the woman to go out from her home and work, so that we can achieve two goals. Goal number one, she's not going to have a lot of kids, because a career woman is not going to have a lot of kids. A career cannot have 6, 7, 9 kids, right? And if someone tell me 9 kids, I tell you Yaqub alayhi salam had 12 kids. And if you see, for example, in Canada, if you see the Jews, the Hasidic Jews, the minimum they have 8. So it's halal on them, it's haram on us. For us, it's enough for you 1 or 2. Enough for them, not for me. I have 12, by the way, mashallah. And I'm still going. And I say it, and I'm proud of it, mashallah. And I'm still going. Okay? Allahumma barik. So it's, people, I don't know. My rizq is not in my hands. So why would I worry about their rizq? I mean, this doesn't make sense, right? Allah gives you something. You know how many people, they spend thousands of dollars to have kids? And Allah giving you this thing, and then, let me go and stop this? Maybe he doesn't agree with me. What did you tell him about Noah? What did you do to your father? Salaam alaikum. So, what we're saying is, okay, how do you get here? You're talking about? Yeah, so,
The limit of kids.
About the United States, the new president.
okay, yeah. So when the woman goes to work, number one, she's not going to have a lot of kids. One or two. And number two is that she's not going to be the one raising her kids. Who's going to raise the kids? Daycare, schools, etc. And who's controlling these things, the curriculum? It's them. Okay. Very, very simple. It's a concise plot, and they have succeeded. Country where I come from, they have succeeded. When I go to the park with my kids, wallahi, I feel like I am the zoo. People, they're looking at me with all these kids, mashallah, and I said, subhanallah. How did Muslims get here?
I was just listening to a person saying about maybe 50 years to come, because in London, I believe, the Muslim will be more than the Christians. And the reason being is we Christians do not give birth to maybe one or two. But these guys, they are 5, 10, 20. So in future, this is 50 years to come on.
This is why they bring us,
That's
brother.
what that.
This is why they bring us.
Recently born.
They bring us because we have a lot of kids. They bring us to the West, not because they love us, but because we have a lot of kids. But they have a plan, don't worry. Allah also has a plan. But what is their plan? Their plan was actually voiced by a politician in Quebec, because the people there started talking about a lot of masjids in Quebec. She told them clearly, she says, we don't need these immigrants, nor their children, but the third generation will be ours. I have family members that went to France that are no longer Muslim today.
Yeah, but I know, but now they're getting scared of the Muslims becoming more. That's what they're scared again.
Inshallah, the whole earth will be Muslim under Isa alayhi salam, so let them plot whatever they plot. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's plan is bigger. Yeah.
They now understand the plan was not working.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Go ahead, man.
These people are getting too many children. If they take 3 children, and these guys have 5 children, so still
Yeah.
he has 5 children more.
And that's why they give you money for each kid, so they can encourage you to have more kids. Yes, Brother Salman?
One of the things that are also affecting is the education system. I've been hearing about previous scholars, they always say that they've been educated by their mothers, and one of our best scholars been saying that. So now that we have this education system, is it going against the grain in our traditions, or is it something that we're supposed to prepare to deal with in a way? Or should we accept the education system as it is?
Well, that's an excellent point. And you have figured out where the disease is coming into the ummah, from the education system, what they teach people. Personally, I teach my boys the Quran only. And once they finish the Quran, inshallah, I will teach them the worldly knowledge, which is mathematics. I'm an engineer myself, so I don't need outside education for them. But I have a path for them, like you said, that our ancestors did. My daughters study at home. Because Aisha radiallahu anha, Hafsa bint Sirin, the women scholars never went to university. And if you lived in the country that I lived in, you will know that when kids go to school and university, believe me, they don't study. Not only that, but the US did a study that lasted 4 years in the US at the time of Hillary Clinton. And Hillary Clinton made a law. She's a woman. In this study, they tried segregated and mixed school environment. And they found that boys and girls excel in segregated school environments. So they made a law saying that because educating the kid is mandatory, it's mandatory for us to give this kid the correct setting to learn. And that's why there are thousands of schools in the US that are segregated. In Muslim countries, you do that. There was one school where my older boys studied in, where they were separating boys and girls because the owner was also a sheikh that came from Europe. And of course, the Department of Education, they would always send some woman that's wearing no hijab, that's trying to tell them, you guys are backwards. So you have to be like me, you have to leave Islam. And they kept on nagging on them until they finally ended up mixing boys and girls. And of course, when they mix, as I said, a lot of evil things happen. Education does not happen. So this is the thing that I'm telling you. I have to be clear with you. that I don't think most men will be able to do it because their wives will not allow them. Their family members will not allow them. Okay, because my family members, when I talk to them, you're doing injustice to them. What do you want from them? So, because for them, dunya is everything. They don't care about what these kids actually have in their hearts. It's just dunya. Go study, get a job, take bribery when you're doing your job. You're living. This is important. You're alive. You're eating, you're sleeping. People don't care about deen, don't care about the heart. So they say, oh, you're doing injustice to him. It's my kid. I'm responsible for it. Okay? So therefore, the question you said, my brother, that's the solution. We want our kids to be the way we want them. We have to take control of their education. Here in Canada, alhamdulillah, they have this home study, homeschooling. And I know a lot of Muslims that do that. Okay? At least until they reach high school, they reach university, and then they are grown up to not fall into the peer pressure that happens with the younger kids. So yeah, and here in Canada, I recommend that you send your kids to Islamic school. Do not send them to public school. You are destroying your kids if you're in public school. I gave a speech in a couple of public schools here in Canada, and one of the major complaints that parents and also some Muslim teachers that were in this public school is that they say in Ramadan, these kids, they come from their homes with the hijab for the girls, fasting when they come to school to cover the hijab, and they eat. They have dual personality, schizophrenia. So they are, when they're with their parents, they're good Muslims. Hijab, and with my mom, when they go there, drugs, etc. So if you must live here, then send your kids to Islamic school. You're going to tell me something. Islamic schools, they are rough, they yell at kids. And what happened to their aqidah? So you're more worried about the minutiae things, about the things that are not so important. Yeah, it's okay. I mean, teachers are different. They may come from third world country that they themselves learned with beating, right? Right, they're not going to beat your kids because it's Canada, but if they yell at them, no big deal,
I think mostly it's financial, because it's very expensive. One child costs around $400 to $500.
Yeah, when I used to send my kids, it was like $300, plus I had to drive them all the way to Isna. I mean, it's a financial burden, but.
No, even the system has to be a little bit help the other people who wants to be their school. It's I know it's.
But I mean, here in Canada, you do get some money for your kids,
It's
right?
non-profit effect.
You do get some money for the kids, right?
Now, yes, before was not much. Before was like $100, like 30. I'm talking about 30 years ago. Now, it's,
Not 30, no,
now
yeah.
it's increased now, but that
Yeah.
time,
Yeah. So since it increased, then if Allah gives you that money in the name of the kids, then use it for the kids. Now many wives, I know them, they take that money, they tell the husband, this is my money. Here, you go buy everything, is my money. Otherwise, it's because it's my name. It's
no,
not.
you said this both has to be on board. Otherwise,
It's a difficult path,
yeah.
because even the kids, when they see that others are going to school and they're not going to school, they're still kids. They still don't understand that that's for in their own good. But you have to talk to them a lot. That's why I said, kids, you have to talk to them. Say, look, what they're doing, you're gonna do, but you're gonna do better than them. Okay, I'm teaching you to become a leader. I don't want you to be just one of the sheep. These are sheep going to the slaughterhouse. These are sheep going to the slaughterhouse. Okay, because where I come from, things I've seen with my eyes, and I'm talking 8, 10-year-old girls having boyfriends. This is in Muslim countries. 8, 10 years old. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bring us back to the true path, because anyone you talk to them about this, they just look at you and they say, oh, you want to bring us back 1400 years? I said, yes, I want to bring you back 1400 years when we were the leaders. We were not the humiliated ones of today. Not bring you back as far as, riding donkey, and no, that's the Muslims today. Instead, so bring you back to being leaders, because the Western technology and knowledge has come from Muslims. This is something that they don't deny. Muslims deny it, but they don't deny it. Talk about Avicenna, the canon. The canon is Qanun. Although Avicenna had some crookedness in his creed, but he's considered a Muslim, right? Algorithms are Khawarizmi. Khawarizmi is the one that discovered the zero. And one Nas scientist said if it were not for the zero, we would not have reached the moon, right? So, because Islam doesn't tell you to not innovate. Islam, no. On the other hand, when Muslims used to learn Quran when they are 6 years old and then do the worldly thing. Like Ibn Sina, he was a surgeon at 17. He learned the Quran first. Your brain, you become much smarter. Your IQ is much higher than the normal person. Because if you can put Allah's words in your brain, believe me, any worldly knowledge is easy. But that's why they figured that's our strength, so they flipped it. Now kids, they go to school 6 days a week, and even Sunday they want to send them there, so they have no time for Quran. Talk about Muslim land. Okay, so therefore, my brothers, if and also the money that you are spending on your kids, this is fi sabilillah. You have to understand. You get reward for it in this dunya and the hereafter, and you will see that in your own eyes with your kids. Okay, because my kids went to school here, and then now, mashallah, my oldest is already 27 years old. So he's in touch with the kids that used to study with him in ISNA. So he said, alhamdulillah, maybe only one or two that are not on the deen. Otherwise, always, all of them, alhamdulillah, remain on the deen. Because the critical period is this adolescence. Between 12 and 18, this is when kids are not secure about themselves. They try to fit in with the people around them. The fact that they are Muslim already makes them feel that they are lower than their cronies, if in public schools, etc. So they're gonna try to do things to compensate. They're gonna try to look tough. They're gonna try to get guns. They're gonna try to do drugs, so that they can tell the people, the other Canadians who are not Muslims, that we are just like you. Okay, so this is the critical age. That's why if you save them in this age, inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will protect them for you the rest of their lives. So, this is speaking from personal experience, and also from what I've learned from the scholars, and Allah knows best.
We're in the wrong country.
Well, I used to say that 10 years ago, my brother, but now, if you look at Muslim countries,
No different?
no, there's always difference. There is pros and cons. But now the problem is that, like if you compare Canada to the US, for example, Canada is much better, right? I came from the US because over there it was very difficult being a Muslim, right? But the problem is that Muslim countries now, the evil has grown up exponentially to the point that now there are some things that you see in Muslim land that you don't see in non-Muslim lands. Okay? So, but then again, I guess it also, as Shaykh al-Rahimullah says, depends on the Muslim country. Even Muslim countries, they are different in their degree of evil. Okay? So, but yeah, I mean, like what a lot of the brothers do, like they keep their families in Muslim countries like Egypt or Turkey until they grow up. That's a good thing. That's a commendable thing. Because that's, like I said, that 12 to 17, that's the period where the kid gets programmed. So if he gets programmed with Islam, and even though we have some crookedness in the Muslim land, but still, it's still a Muslim country. So at least when they reach 18, they have that basis. So even if they get lost, la qaddar, they have a safety, a harbor to come back to. But if they grow up here, it's, Allah knows best. But at the end,